You played with some big personalities, on the field and dealt with them in the locker rooms. How about Deion Sanders? Another big personality, and it wasn't a secret that he was sort of at odds with Jerry Rice at times, different personalities, different styles.
I thought that was a secret.
Yeah,
Bill, you're scaring me.
Exactly.
You know too much.
You've seen it. Did they ever square off?
No. The Super Bowl, we had a couple of things that flared up, but Deion was he was a master of marketing. There was nobody on Madison Avenue that knew more about marketing than Deion did. Just intuitively, he was a street smart guy on marketing, and he didn't do anything that wasn't calculated for marketing.
Right.
And so I appreciated that. He was a good teammate. A lot of guys do things for show to take away from people, and it's awkward and it hurts the team and it creates a problem. I thought Deion might be like that when he joined the 49ers for that year. He wasn't. Once you understood that it was calculated and that in the locker room he was not looking for trouble, he also wasn't looking for self-aggrandizement, how do I call this, wildly. It was calculated and it was a part of the spiel kind of thing. Once you got that, he was a phenomenal football player, and he helped us a lot that year. So the personalities flared up a little bit, but our locker room, the best locker rooms in football, you always know the best locker rooms because of the teams that are winning. You can say, oh, they have this great tactic. Oh, they have this great offensive scheme. Oh, they have a great locker room. And that locker room self-polices. That locker room, because there's problems. You get 50 guys in a room, adult guys, all ultra competitive, best athletes in the world, you're going to have a lot of problems. And the locker rooms that can self-police, if you need the coach to come down, or the general manager, or the owner even, to come in and broker deals, and broker situations in the locker room, you will never make it. But if you have a group of guys in the locker room that have the authority, the moral authority, just by the fact of who they are, can turn to the rest of the team and say, this is how we're doing it, this is what's going to happen, and everybody's like, okay, all right. There's a few locker rooms like that, and they win. Yeah. Doesn't matter what coach, I don't know. What plays they calling, I don't know. But they're winning. And a lot of football is a commodity. That's why I can cover Monday night games. My firm we'll buy a suite and bring in, for our portfolio companies, we'll have some marketing, bring in some big customers, we'll bring in bankers and intermediaries, we'll bring in potential owners of businesses that we're looking at, and we'll host 8 to 10 events on the Monday night schedule. So I'll bring them down on the field, we'll do the thing on TV, and then I'll go out and spend the game with them with the rest of my partners. We've leveraged it up. That's what I've tried to do since I played, right, is to do that. And I can't remember what I was even talking about, but what were we talking about? I got lost. I'm sorry.
Big personalities, but...
big personalities.
Yeah. So speaking of that, though, you played with some big personalities on the opposite side of the field as well, like Reggie White, Bruce Smith. Those guys would take you down, be in your face, trash talking. What were they saying?
Well, Phil, I got to be honest with you, it's just the opposite. I always joke that football is a gentleman's game, and I've maintained this throughout my career and even today. I always tell people, in the straight face, it's a gentleman's game. There are thugs that play it. There are bad guys that play it. There are, but where it's played its best and highest, it's a gentleman's game. And as proven by Reggie White and Bruce Smith and other Hall of Fame defensive linemen. I can't tell you the innumerable times that those guys knocked me down or sacked me. And there wasn't a time that they didn't pick me up. Not once. And every time was a conversation. Reggie was always like, hey brother, how you doing? How's the family? And I'm like, hey Reggie, I'm not married, Reggie. Oh, that's right. No, Bruce Smith, there's a great story I tell about Bruce Smith. I saw him at the Super Bowl a few weeks ago. It reminded him of the story in Buffalo where he had sacked me 2 or 3 times in the first quarter or half. And about the third or fourth time, I'm like, Bruce, come on. This is nuts. He goes, I can't help it. Your right tackle sucks. And so, but those guys would hit you, they knock you down. And the thing about football is, people know to the nanosecond what's legal and not legal. And everybody has a sense of it. It becomes second nature. And when something happens that's outside of that, that, it's self-policed. And football does that, that's just the nature of the game. It's a little mosaic law a little bit, but it works. But when it's played at its best, it's a gentleman's game. Tough, fierce.
Sure.
And so when people don't play it as a gentleman's game, it takes the game down a little bit.
Right, right. Well, when it is tough, and you got hit hard, you had some concussions, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, how did the concussions play a role in your career? How do you see that playing out in the NFL?
Phil, I gotta be honest with you, it didn't play much of a role until the end.
Okay.
And I can tell you that even now, post now 13 years, 14, almost 14 years, that I can say that with a rearview mirror, that in many ways, I got stuck in a political drama around concussions. I had concussions, and when I'm 75 years old and I'm still lucid and speaking as remarkably well as I am today, we'll see if that's true or not, but then I'll be proven right. But I do believe that, like any part of the body, it can be hurt and healed and better, but it depends. You can have one horrible episode and be changed for life. A friend of mine plays local high school basketball, jumped up, got undercut, hit his head, and it'll never be the same. It just won't be the same. So there's concussions, and then there's bigger problems. I call mine vanilla. We'll find out in the long term if they are. I remember being knocked and feeling dizzy, never really being unconscious. I still, with a straight face, tell you that even my last play of my career in Phoenix, I wasn't knocked out, I was just resting. I was a little more dramatic towards the end of my career, and I think it was more of a drama, and it cost me, because I really did feel pretty good. The next week, I was seeing a neurologist at Stanford, and just to show you how nefarious this injury is with concussions, even the greatest, most advanced neurologist, you would tell him, he'd say, "How do you feel?" "Feel pretty good." "All right, can you run? You not have any problem?" "No, I'm fine." "Can you lift weights? Can you exercise?" "Yeah, great." "Sleeping?" "Fine." "You tired?" "No." "All right, well, okay. I think you can play." It's a hard, and that's what the problem today in the league is that we all understand concussions because I think we grew up with them and understand, even more so because there's an awareness and now there's a protocol and there's all these things that happen when someone has them. You're actually seeing Alex Smith miss the game and lost his career in San Francisco because he sat out a week. So we see that it's working, because otherwise in the past, Alex Smith would never sit out. He would never even think about it. So it's getting better, but for me, I feel like I had a number of 4 or 5 episodes healed, and hopefully in the long term it's going to be okay. But by the time that there's a real focus in the late 90s around concussions for good reasons, because we used to laugh at them. Used to be you get a concussion and a guy's like, "I don't know where I'm at." And it's like, "Oh, look at him," and it was funny. There was a hilarity to it. And there was no sense that you shouldn't play or couldn't play or not. And any coach, not that they didn't care, but their job was on the line, and you're a great player, you need to be out there.
Yeah.
So by the time I was done in '99, it was a very political, difficult situation. And Bill was a part of it. Steve Mariucci was a part of it. The nice elderly woman that I'd see at the Drager's was a part of it, where she would say, please don't play. I pray for you, and I'm so worried about you, and I don't want you to get hurt anymore. It was real. Yeah. I got that all the time. And so it got to be a point where it's like, I think I can still play really rationally and effectively, but I'm not sure it's the right thing to do. Because every time I would say that, there was this part of people would say, "See, he's crazy. See, he's not rational. He's going to hurt his body for good." And so part of my leaving the game was probably in good, and I'm glad. Yeah. I'm happy. I moved on. I've transitioned. When you end a professional sports career, especially in football, you fall off a cliff. The next day, after you've retired, you realize I'm not good at anything else.
I think he proved.
But you're not. I had no idea what I would end up doing. I had a law degree. I swam hard and fast. I swam upstream as effectively as I could. But you're not 3rd and 7 in Dallas Cowboy Stadium, down by 4 in the 4th quarter. that's a great, cool place to be. Steve Covey proved me that's a great place to be, you know?
Well, you made the transition very well into private equity. I mean, as you say, just
Well, just Phil, before we end concussions, I think people probably just, to bring it to today, there's this thing called CTE. Am I thinking about it right? Yeah, I don't know the long medical term. The idea that you could, with helmeted, practice and play for a number of years, never have an actual episode of concussion where you felt dizzy or knocked out or any kind of, but you could just be knocked around as a lineman or a linebacker and just practice. I practice and play for 15 years, and now I'm 55, 60 years old, and I have this CTE, which is this debilitating brain damage that creates depression and all kinds of horrible things, and people are shooting themselves because of this. And so that's the assumption of the risk that as football players we don't have our hands wrapped around yet.
Right. What do you think the role of the NFL is? I mean, we just had a settlement for $765 million. Is that enough? Where should that play out?
I mean, as a legal matter,
you're a lawyer.
It's hard, you know, when I'm in 1999, I'm over at Stanford Neurology, and he's asking me, how do you feel? You know, can you run? Can you? To hold the league completely accountable, I just don't think it's a nefarious injury. But the league is benefiting from the product. They have to be cutting edge. They have to be ahead of it. They are accountable on some level. So I'm fine with what's happened. I'm fine with the judge saying that that's not nearly enough of now a $20 billion. I don't know what the annual revenue is, but it's incredible. But the total enterprise value is probably in the, I don't know, it's got to be close to 50 at this point. So them participating in it and making a fund available for guys that have problems makes a lot of sense to me. But until we can get our arms around the science about CTE, we can understand assumption of risk with concussions. Bull riders do it, astronauts, you know, everyone has jobs to do and they choose to do them. But this part, no one understands. It scares a lot of kids. So that's it. We'll close that.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Let's talk about private equity, though. So you made the transition. You're running a $1.1 billion fund today. Where are the crossovers of professional football and private equity? Where are the similarities? You mentioned one already, which is the culture of the locker room. That's the case with the culture of companies, and we need good cultures within companies to be successful. How do you see that crossover? Where have you used your skills in the NFL and brought them to private equity?
I'll bet you, you know, I was in just to go back, when we were in San Francisco, Tommy Vardell was touchdown Tommy, remember, from Stanford. Mark Harris was a receiver at Stanford. Brent Jones was a receiver at Santa Clara when they used to play football back in the early days. Myself, Harris Barton, we were a group that lunched together every day. And we would try to figure out, this is mid-90s, mid to early 90s. We moved to Santa Clara in '87. Think about it, Santa Clara gave us the land out there by the golf course where the stadium is today. No, nothing was there.